Well, hello everybody, and welcome back. So just some hopefully quick thoughts. And before I get into it, I want to briefly mention sociopaths. And the reason why is because they are the only people that this piece of advice or these thoughts that I have don't apply to. And I'm not a psychology expert, so forgive me if I'm failing to mention something or if I've gotten the definitions slightly off, but nonetheless, from my experience in life, regardless of whether I'm choosing the right terminology, these two kinds of people do exist. And one is the more negative one that usually pops to your mind right away, like like the sociopath that is just doesn't care about anything or anybody else. That's just will cut down anybody, do horrible things to other people, and just is all out for themselves without any remorse to other people's feelings or other people's situations and whatnot. They're just all out for themselves. The only emotions they have towards anything or anybody are things that serve themselves. And that's the really negative one that is there that usually comes to your mind when you hear the word sociopath. There's also another one that isn't quite so bad. This is somebody who, and usually we know people like this. They could be a friend, a family member, somebody that you grew up with, somebody you work with, whatever, anybody that you know from around. And they're a good person. They conduct themselves nicely and positively, and they've got a good moral compass. They do care about things and serve the greater good of most things. But at some point in their life, they realized that really powerful emotions from other people and the emotions that come up within themselves when it comes to witnessing bad things happening to other people, witnessing events that aren't very pleasant to see, situations that cause people to be disrupted in their life in a negative way. They realize that those sort of things scare the shit out of them. It scares them so much that they don't want anything to do with it. They build a wall. It's like that they care to some degree and they have a decent moral compass, but yet they aren't externally, they seem very detached from things that are happening. It seems very easy for them to shrug things off and not be reactive to it whatsoever, and not really be there emotionally for their friends and that if they're going through something. But nonetheless, you don't cut these people out or hate them or deem them as bad, because they're not bad. They're not selfishly just serving themselves. That they're just afraid of those emotions and those things, so they have that wall set up, and the second anytime any emotion like that comes up, they just heave it right over the wall. But they're still being affected by it. They just don't allow it to sit with them for very long, and that they've thrown so many things over that wall that they might be successful at detaching from it for the most part, but they can hear that storm on the other side of the wall crashing against it, and that frightens them, so they just keep reinforcing that wall, making it stronger and whatnot. But they're not bad people. So those are the two kinds of sociopaths, and so those are the two people that the other thing I'm going to say doesn't apply to. So in a lot of the self-improvement world, there's a lot of these statements that get thrown around, like pain is a great teacher. These negative emotions, these negative occurrences that happen, you need to learn to accept them and embrace them and learn from them, and remind yourself that one one day in hindsight you're going to look back at them with a sense of nostalgia, and you're actually going to be happy for them because they shaped who you are, and they taught you lessons about what you're capable of, and all these sorts of things. And I'm not denying that. I don't think that's untrue. I think that's very true. You know, even in the spiritual community, they talk about, you know, not becoming overly attached to any emotion, both good and bad, and just imagining it like it's the weather around you, like it's something you can't control. You don't have to have an opinion about it or place a name on it or really do tons internally about it. Like, you just have to embrace it and accept it for what it is and just let it revolve around you and pass as if it's the weather. And all of these things, like I said, I can't state enough that I'm not in disagreement with that. I don't think that it's untrue. I think it's very valid. But I think some people take that mindset a little bit too seriously and a little bit too close to heart, in the sense that they almost have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder about really being disciplined in viewing things in that sort of way. And one thing that has been on my mind a lot lately is that if you aren't a sociopath, whether you're the relatively you know, a good person that's understandable to some degree, but you have that wall built up, or you're a true sociopath that just doesn't care about anything or anybody but yourself, unless you're one of those people, then if you have any sort of a balanced, and I hate to offend some people by saying normal, but normal range of emotions and normal brain chemistry, then I don't think you have to learn to embrace these things as much, because anything, and let's not even take like very terrible events, let's leave that aside, because that's all very obvious and in your face stuff. Let's just take general things that happen on a day-to-day basis. You know, you're never, if something really embarrassing happens to you, you're never not going to be embarrassed. If someone rejects you in any way that you can be rejected, you're never not going to feel sad or, you know, disappointed about that. If somebody does something that angers you or disrupts your life in a negative way, you're never not going to be angry about it. You know, whatever, like you insert whatever situation you can think of that's negative, and the negative emotion associated with it is never not going to be there. Unless you are naturally are inclined spiritually or have the brain chemistry to be sociopathic, then you're not, those emotions aren't, they're almost impossible to not be there during those kinds of things. So rather than embracing them, and rather than, you know, trying to learn from them and viewing them as the weather that's around you and they just are, and this, that, and the other, I am almost pondering the idea, and I don't know, I'm asking your opinion about this too. I think that you should immediately try to alleviate them, whether that be through just adapting a little bit more of a positive mindset behind it, putting in action to change the situation, you know, finding whatever sort of humorous, lighthearted, kind of funny way to look at it, you know, apologizing if you need to, calling somebody out if you need, like whatever it is and it can be different, whatever it is in any given situation, rather than taking this sort of rough hills approach of like, oh, like I got to be disciplined to embrace this, like this is going to teach me a lot of things, and this is good for my spirit and all this kind of stuff. You should more or less just immediately try to alleviate it through whatever means are possibly at your disposal to do so, because it's going to make you feel at least a little bit better, it's going to make the situation just a little bit better. Sometimes it, depending on the degree of the situation, it might resolve it completely. And you don't have to worry about what lesson is in that pain, because it'll also, you can't ignore the lesson in pain either. Like it's going to present it. Sometimes it happens immediately and you immediately figure out the lesson, and sometimes it's not until years and years down the road that you're looking back on your life and you're like, that bit of pain that I experienced taught me this or whatever. But you can't avoid that. There's no possible way that you can deliberately not receive that lesson. Like it's just there. It's gonna be there no matter what. So I think people are a little bit too heavily disciplined and too heavily on board with the idea of embracing and lingering in the lessons of pain and suffering, when they could probably, through whatever means possible, just try to alleviate the pain and try to alleviate the situation as quickly as possible. And the feelings that are associated with the initial event are never not going to be there. And the lessons that are in it are never not going to present themselves. I'd even make the argument that it's likely impossible for you to not feel those emotions. And it's also likely impossible that the lessons won't be ever learned or won't ever present themselves to you. So just try to make it funny. Try to make it, try to make it not so bad. Look at the bright side, whatever. Do something that could amend the situation. Figure out a better way to go about life afterwards, The emotions aren't ever going to be there unless you're a sociopath. So those are just some quick thoughts of mine, and well, maybe not so quick. I tend to say that and then ramble on longer than I meant to. But anyway, if you have watched this whole thing and you find this insightful, or you're interested in what these thoughts in any sort of way, just I'd love to hear your comments about that down below. Thank you very much.